What is up, everyone? Welcome back and bear down. I'm excited for this today. This is going to be a shorter one, hopefully, but it's going to be packed with a lot of information. Because as we go through this offseason, I get a lot of conflicting things where I see people with unrealistic expectations of what we can really look forward to in free agency signings and the trade downs. I contribute to it. I do the mock drafts. I do all this fun stuff because it's fun. We like to do that stuff. It's fun to think about and dream about what we might be able to pull off. But there's a reality of this situation, and I want to kind of go over that for a minute. But before we get too deep into it, I want to give a genuine thank you to all of you who have been tuning in. This channel is growing a little bit quicker than I expected it to. Now, I'm pumping a ton of content out because I'm having fun doing it, and it's become a second thing for me, and it's become an obsession, but I enjoy it. And as long as you're enjoying it, let's keep doing it together. But I do want to say thank you to all of you. And if you haven't subscribed, I really hope you will. We have some good stuff coming, and I'm doing my best with this. Bear with me and bear down because this is going to be a fun ride for all of us. We're going to hit it all here real quick, guys. We're going to go through it all. We're going to go through the team, where it stands right now, what we need, what's going to happen, the reality of the situation, what our free agency needs are, what the draft needs are, what trade down realistically can look like, and where that all stands. But we're going to go through it quick. I just want to make this a good video about what reality of this offseason will probably look like. We'll start first with the offense. You can see the needs we have in front of us. We've already talked about these quite a bit. The biggest need is the X receiver and the center, possibly a guard, slot receiver. We've got some needs, but they're not detrimental needs. As we go to the defense, our biggest need is re-signing that big circle right there. Number 1 out of 128 cornerbacks, Jalen Johnson. That's a priority, and it's going to get done. You heard Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus talk about it in the end of your press conference. They're already talking about it, and they said, we will get it done. That was their words. We will get it done. Other than that, we have a need for another edge, free safety, especially if Eddie Jackson's contract gets cut, which we fully expect it will be, and then some other subsidiary needs along the way as well. Let's look at where our cap space is. So this is updated cap space, and it will be updated even more in the coming weeks when they release the 2024 cap space. This is off the projections of what next year's cap space will be. If you haven't seen the Eddie Jackson and Cody Whitehair situation, this is where you can find it, is on Sport Track. You hit the little click down, and you'll see what their pre-6-1 cut and their post-6-1 cut is. It doesn't change the fact that we're going to owe Eddie Jackson $5.58 million either way if we cut him, but it saves us $12.56 or $14.1 this year by deferring $1.59 of that to next year. So we're still on the hook either way for $5.58. That's going to happen, but we can defer $1.59 of that to next year, which is where the $14.15 comes from. That's a substantial amount of savings this year. That's a minimum level contract for a player, which we're going to need. So I see us cutting him post 6-1, but Cody Whitehair, it's about the same amount of savings, 1.1, but I think we need the money now. I don't know. We'll see how those two go. We might just take the whole 22 million right now instead of deferring part of that. Who knows? And it'll help us for next year. We'll see. But this is where those numbers come from. We're going to be right around 73 million, might be 72 million, but that's going to be our cap space. And here's why I'm making part of this video. A lot of fans have unrealistic views about what we can go sign with that, because there's going to be 5 or 6 low-level contracts we need. There might be a couple mid-tier contracts, like signing Hunter Henry from the Patriots would be a very quality tight end signing for a backup tight end, but that's going to cost $5-6 million. The same with any other mid-tier or backup tight end or guard we have. They might be a little more expensive than the low-level minimum. So some of these things might not pan out the way fans think they do, but let's take a look at where the Bears stand right now. With our cap space, $50 million, as you saw, we can get it to about 73. The Commanders are going to be sitting at 84. These are my biggest realities for trade partners for us, okay? So that's why I put them up here, where their cap space needs are. And the one you want to really pay attention to there at the end is the Falcons, because they're in win-now mode. They are not in flexibility with their cap space to grow, to build like the Bears and some of these other teams are. They can build brick by brick by drafting and doing some of those things over time. The Falcons are kind of in win-now mode, which can lead to two things. It can mean they're going to go out and sign a veteran quarterback, or they're going to try to get the very best quarterback that's probably going to be the guaranteed home run hit, which would be Caleb Williams. So those are the things to keep in mind there, which might mean the Falcons are going to reach up higher and harder than other teams. And if you remember my mock draft 6.0, we're going to reference that one a little bit later. That's a reality situation that you might see. Ryan Poles is not going to want to trade down from the very tippity top of this draft to go down that far and pass up on some of the blue chip players in this draft unless someone makes it worth it for him. And that's why the reality is we're probably going to trade with the Commanders. We're going to accept a little bit less. We're going to accept a little less long-term as far as the value you get long-term, first-round picks in the future and all these other things to get a little more value. The Commanders can secure Caleb Williams, and both of us are happy, and we still get Marvin Harrison Jr. That's going to be the reality of what happens this offseason. Or you can get something like what happened last year with the Panthers. We'll get to that at the end here. But so here's the Bears' team position of need according to Adam, the gospel of Adam. Center's number 1, wide receiver, free safety, defensive end, wide receiver again, cornerback, then guard, defensive tackle, offensive tackle, quarterback. You can dispute these. You can go back and forth. They're going to change a little bit here and there. But these are the most crucial positions above this line to me of what we need to address. Jalen Johnson would fix that with cornerback. We wouldn't have a team need there. But the elite round is where I want to focus on. We don't just want to – a lot of fans think we can pick up 4th or 5th or 6th round people and they can be starters. That's old thinking when we were in desperation. The reality is your starters come from the 1st and 2nd round, and even then they don't always pan out. So you have to really love the guy, research the guy, and I think Poles does a good job of those. But really, we need to be picking in the 1st and 2nd round, and right now we have 2 of those picks. And luckily, they're big-time blue-chip picks. They're 1st and 9th overall. But where that leaves us with is let's look at free agency and let's focus and say, okay, with the $73 million, how far will that go if we address some of these in free agency? Because we're not going to get those with the top of the class. Let's say we're going to focus on wide receiver and defensive end in the 1st round and focus on those 2, because free safety would be late 1st round. Any other wide receiver other than the top tier one is going to be hard to get later on in the 1st or 2nd round. We don't have a 2nd round pick. Or cornerback or center. Center's not till the 2nd round. We don't have a 2nd round pick. And look at how centers did last year in rookie seasons. That's a hard position to get down right off the bat. Ricky Stromberg, John Michael Schmitz. Every Bears fan I knew wanted John Michael Schmitz. Look how he played out this last year. His grading was not good. He did not perform well. He has a lot of potential, but it didn't come around in the first season. The Bears need to have it put together right now with the situation we have with Justin Fields. So let's say we do snag up some of these guys. So I want to mention at the top here some notable names Bear fans think that we're going to get, but they're probably going to get tagged. Antoine Winfield Jr., he's my favorite. I really want him, but the Bucs are probably going to tag him. T. Higgins and Michael Pittman for wide receiver. I've heard their names thrown around a lot. They're going to get tagged. Kyle Duggar at safety, going to get tagged. That really leaves one solid option at safety, and that's Xavier McKinney. And if we're cutting Eddie Jackson, I really think we're not going to have a chance to get Tyler Nubin. I mean, some of my drafts I have is trading back into the 1st round. It's not necessarily reality, and that's what this video is for, is what's the reality? Xavier McKinney would be a solid plug-in free safety, 3-year, $34, $35 million deal. Let's say it's 33, $11 million a year. That's a solid safety for us to put it. He's a solid tackler, too. He doesn't have some of the issues Eddie had at the end of his contract. Connor Williams is going to be one of the cheaper options at centers for the top-tier centers because this next year he's going to be getting a little bit of a discount. He could either go 2 routes. He could go 1 year, $6 million contract, prove it, because I'm not healthy yet and I'm not going to play half the season with his ACL injury. Or a team can sign a 3 or 4 year contract with him, get a discount on the 1st year, and that averages out to be a better contract long term. And I see the Bears doing something like that. That would be awesome. But then we still need to draft a Zach Frazier. It would be nice to get Jackson Powers Johnson. He's my favorite. I absolutely love him, but he's going to go in the 2nd round, and we don't have a 2nd round pick. So what are we going to do? Even if we get Connor Williams, we can still get him and have him be a plug-and-play center guard option. I mean, there's different options we have, but Jalen Johnson's going to be a priority, number 1. Let's say we do get Connor Williams on a 3-year deal, 4-year deal, where the 1st year is discounted and averages out cheaper over those 4 years. Instead of $15 million a year, it averages out $12.5 because the 1st year is on a discount. And that's reality. That's been already out there quite a bit. That's a good option for a team to do. Say we get Xavier McKinney. We don't get a top-tier wide receiver, but we get a nice slot receiver that's a utility knife that plays in different positions. Curtis Samuel would be very, very attractive for the new system that we're going to be running. Well, not necessarily new, but to be able to have with Shane Waldron running things, I think he would enjoy having him as well as a few draft picks. That would be nice. Then, a couple of the signings that are going to be minimum level contracts, Dylan Cole, Patrick Seals, that already puts us at 19. Our draft pool is going to be 15 with the high draft picks we have. That's leaving us very thin cap space. So it's not reality that we're going to go out and sign 4 or 5 huge names. That's not how these things work. So we're probably going to get something like this, and then it really comes down to who are we going to trade that first pick with? Or do we just take Marvin Harrison Jr. first overall? Is that what's going to happen? I don't think so. I think there's 2 solid options. I mentioned them in a different video. They came directly from this slide right here. That video was called Chicago Bears 2024 Trade Down Scenarios. It actually ended up being a more popular one because of the content like this that was in there. But the reality is we're probably not going to trade with the Patriots. I don't see that happen. Really, the only 2 options I see are the Commanders, or if Atlanta's willing to overpay, which that's very, very possible with the situation they're in and the new leadership and where they're at. Those are the 2 I really see. That's reality to me. That's probably the only 2 trade partners that we have. We don't even know if New York is going to draft a quarterback. We don't know that. Daniel Jones's contract wasn't horrible, and he had a decent season going before his injury, and he's still on that contract. It's not like he just all of a sudden is given up on by the organization because of an injury. It's just people were very frustrated this year. They do have a desperate need for wide receiver, and there are 3 wide receivers in this class that are number 1 wide receivers in any other class. Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze. All 3 of them would be top-tier wide receivers in any other class. They're going to be plug in, and they are going to be contributors on their team day one. And I don't see Ryan Poles passing on Marvin Harrison Jr. I just don't see it happening unless Atlanta is going to come for a haul. So I'm going to review those 2 trade scenarios that I gave. This is a little over a week ago. You guys can go back and look at that video if you want. But here's number 1. Small trade down to focus on Marvin Harrison Jr. With that, we trade 1-2 and get 241, 2025 first round pick, or 1-2, 234, 241, and 2025 second round pick. And I can see Ryan Poles forcing Washington to give us the second option. I don't think anybody would say, yeah, Washington, that's going to be a hard time for them to give that up. A first, both seconds, but they have the draft capital this year. If we go back and look at column 2 here, look at Washington. They had a first, 2 seconds, 2 thirds, a 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. So yeah, it's not ideal for them, but to trade up and guarantee they get Caleb Williams, which is the biggest need the Commanders have, and a very consensus that's what they want to do is go quarterback. They have a lot of cap space to focus on some of those other needs. They can go out and get a top-tier offensive tackle or edge in free agency. They can focus on some other things and then draft at the rest of their positions with some fill-in places. But that won't decimate the Commanders like it would some other teams. And then they would still have their first-round pick next year. That could be attractive to them, and we would get those second-rounders this year in a class where we can use some of those positions in the second round. We can go get a Patrick Paul in the second round with one of those upper picks and have us a solid swing tackle with either him or Braxton Jones. This is ideal for the Bears right here. Then we can still get Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 2. You're not risking it going to the Patriots at number 3. And who knows, maybe we even force them to throw in a Nick Gates into the scenario where we get some line depth for us. I can absolutely see scenario 2, 1-2, 234, 241, next year's second round pick, or next year's third if they throw in Nick Gates. I can see that happening, and that helps us in a win now mode, and we have high draft capital to be able to bring plug and play starters into this team. All right, the other one we talked about last week, and now I'm seeing this more and more. ESPN had something come out on Kyle Pitts being a potential trade situation, and I've seen a couple other content creators putting stuff out with Kyle Pitts in this exact same trade that we analyzed and we created a little over a week ago. But this is what it would take for Ryan Poles to say, you know what? There's a lot of top-tier talent. I can still get probably Rome Odunze down there. And Kyle Pitts is really a glorified wide receiver. He's not really a tight end. He doesn't block like a tight end. He's really a receiver, but he's a tight end. But either way, We still have to bring in another tight end, or we'd re-sign Mercedes Lewis. I mean, there's options, but that gives us 2 future first-round picks and the additional draft capital and Kyle Pitts. That's the reality of this offseason. It's going to have to be built a little bit up in the draft, which is why it's so hard to hear people talking about drafting Caleb Williams, because that takes away all this draft capital from what we really need. And we don't need a quarterback. The national media will tell you we need a quarterback. We don't need a quarterback. We need a Shane Waldron to come in and work with our quarterback. We need wide receivers to help our quarterback. We need a Kyle Pitts type of player. We need Marvin Harrison Jr. type of player. We need a center. We need a team that's built around the concept of spreading the ball out and protecting to be able to get the yards. So this is reality to me, guys. There's a lot that we go over in this, and this ended up being longer than I wanted, but this is the reality of the Bears offseason. It's not going to be these crazy trade down scenarios, and I contribute to it. I create the mock drafts because they're fun, and it's fun, and we're going to have fun until it comes to time when all this happens and takes place, and then we have announcements made, and we have the press conferences, and we have the offseason officially start March 11th, and we have free agency, and then we have the draft. All that's going to keep going, and it's fun. This is a fun time to be a Chicago Bears fan, so I love it. Let's keep it rolling. But the reality of the situation is we're not going to draft all these high players with a couple of picks. We've got a couple of them, and if we trade back, we can still get Marvin Harrison Jr., or we can get Rome Odunze and Kyle Pitts, and then we can pick up a couple more guys in the first and second round. But it's not going to be the stock pool. We've got about 13 positions we need, and really we're going to have to get a couple in free agency, and we're going to have to get 3 or 4 of those in the draft, and we're going to have to keep building brick by brick. That's the reality of the Bears situation. Let me know what you think. I really think the Bears are set up in a solid position. We're going to keep doing the mock drafts. We're going to keep doing the positional overviews for the Bears. I love interacting with you guys. Please like and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. If you haven't liked this, please like it. It helps get around to everybody else. But this is a very realistic view of what the Bears offseason will look like. It's not going to be the top tier, guys. It's not going to be your Mike Evans. I know a lot of people want Mike Evans. It's not going to be Mike Evans. That contract doesn't fit with what we're trying to build. We already have DJ Moore's contract. I can see a Curtis Samuel type of contract with, $10 million and a good utility knife slot receiver type of player where he can fill multiple roles right there and be used in multiple ways. And then drafting Marvin Harrison Jr., that in itself is a great offseason for the Bears. So let me know your thoughts. Hope you enjoyed this. Please like and share, and bear down.